This is our audiometer. It's called Audioscope 3. I sent you, I think, two. One is a referral guide. So I'm going to go into that, and I'm going to try to open that up here. Audiometry, in its most basic form, is simply determining at what level the patient can hear different frequencies. And for those of you that have ever been to the doctor, or had kids at the doctor where they put the headphones on and they had to raise your hand when you hear the tone, this boils it down to the simplest variety of that. So this is similar to the headphone-based audiometry system, but there's frequencies. There's lots and lots of frequencies. You know, dogs hear very high frequencies, and humans don't. But the fact of the matter is, normal human speech covers 4 frequencies. You know what? I'm going to try to pull this up. Okay. I'll try to pass this around. All right. So this is the Audioscope 3, and again, there's 4 frequencies that cover normal human speech. So we boil it down to the ridiculous, because these customers are not doing comprehensive hearing. If their job is to determine if the patient is experiencing a hearing loss of any sort, and then refer them on to the appropriate specialist. So that's what the audiometer is about. Now, what you're going to see is right here. You have basically two very simple functions. You have this is your visual indicator, and this is basically your on-off. So what happens is we instruct the patient to raise their hand when they hear the tone. How many of you have had a hearing test before? Raise your hand when you hear the tone. Okay, so we're simply going to turn the device on by sliding this power button onto the first click. And I'll pass this around. So I'm turning it on. Okay. Now it's all about decibels, which is volume, right? Decibels and hertz. Hertz is your frequencies. Decibels is your volume. So the idea is there's 4 frequencies. Okay. The idea is to determine at what level the patient hears each of those frequencies. Okay. Very, very straightforward. So we turn it on to the lowest level. We tell them we're going to insert this into their ear. Close the door. We need to listen for a tone. The first tone is a pre-test or a patient test tone. It's a little bit louder, so it gives them an idea of what the sounds are, so it enables them to focus their attention. And so we simply turn it on to the lowest decibel level, which is 20, and we hit the start button. And it will automatically go through each of the frequencies. So this should be in the patient's ear. You hit the start button, and they should raise their hands 4 times, or 5 times, the pre-test and the 4 frequencies. Does that make sense? Yeah. If they don't raise their hand 5 times, that means they didn't hear something. We want them to hear all 4 frequencies. So if they don't raise their hand each of those times, then you'll see if the light appears, they should raise their hand when the light appears. If the light appears at one of the settings and they don't raise their hand, that means they didn't hear it. Don't talk to them. Just let the test process. It only takes about 45 seconds. And if they don't hear one of the frequencies, we go 1 click louder. We just slide this little thing up 1 more click and go to the next louder frequency. So it's very, very, very simple concept. Most users don't need an in-service. If they do, it's about a 5-minute in-service. So it doesn't get much simpler than that. It comes with a cradle. Okay, it comes with the charging plug in here. There's a rechargeable battery inside the device, and there's rubber-tipped ear tips that come with it as well. We don't put the metal piece in the ear. We use rubber-tipped, reusable ear tips that they would clean with alcohol.
My kid's pediatrician played it once.
Okay, so here's an audiogram form. It comes in a little pad of sticky notes. Most users don't even bother using it. And they definitely don't buy more. They just photocopy the last one and use it on paper. But so here's the frequencies: 500, 1,000, 2,000, and 4,000. Okay. So basically, they have this little form sitting in front of them. They hit the go button or the start button. They do one ear completely with all the frequencies, and they switch to the other ear. So if you'll see at 500 hertz. You'll see when the machine is at 500 hertz, and if the patient responded, then you could you'd write down the decibel level. So if the decibel's at 20 decibels, which is the first notch on the slider, you write down 20. You don't actually fill this out completely until they've completed the process. So in other words, if they don't hear at the first volume level, you're not going to write down no response. You're going to go to the next volume level and give them a chance to work through those options. Does that make sense? So in the end, you may have the right ear 20, 20, 25, 20. Okay? The idea is to write a number down in those boxes. If they don't hear at all any of the volumes, then you write N for no response. Same thing here. And does that make sense? It's basically at what volume do they hear each of these 4 frequencies. And then in the end, there's a referral chart that the physician would use to determine where the patient falls into the referral criteria. This is one of the forms that I sent over to you. And it's printed in the instruction manual for each device. So here's our frequencies: 500, 1,000, 2,000, and 4,000. These right here. You see all the other frequencies we're not using. So if we start at 20 decibels. So at 500 hertz and 20 decibels, that's within the normal range. Right? So the doctor's basically going to, if we have 20, 20, 30, and 20, right? So 30 falls within mild hearing loss. So even if it's one frequency where the patient doesn't hear in the normal range, that doctor's going to refer that patient. Does that make sense? So this is just an eyeball and a bird's eye view of how to gauge the patient's responsiveness. Okay? Do they have normal hearing function in a pediatric or a adolescent or a young adult scenario? Normal hearing is usually at 20. Now, if the doctor has a large geriatric population, they're probably not going to be doing a lot of hearing screening anyway. But if they do, we don't expect most geriatric patients to fit the normal range. It's just the progress of the human body. They may end up somewhere between 20 and 40, and that's probably expected. Okay, but chances are a geriatric patient has already gone through the hearing routine. Okay, does that make sense? There's not a lot of need for you to go into this. It's a very generic, industry standard type of concept that's not new to any physician or nurse or ANP or anything